What is the quality of the air we breathe in the Tampa Bay area? How does air pollution affect the health of the Bay ecosystem? What can we do to better protect our health and our environment?
There's a large link between air pollution and public health issues, particularly for people in the susceptible populations, which include young children whose lungs are still developing, seniors, and people with lung disease such as asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, emphysema, and cardiovascular diseases.
There's also growing recognition that air quality is vital to the health of the Tampa Bay ecosystem.
That link between air quality and water quality is a very strong one, and so what we do at the local level is very important for what happens in the Bay.
The same major sources of air pollution that affect our health and the health of the Bay happen to be carbon emissions that also imperil our natural environment.
What we have is a pollutant that contributes to global warming and literally clogs the pores of our atmosphere. The carbon, it comes from power plants, it comes from cars, it comes from any time we burn a fossil fuel.
Historically, air pollution is improving in the region, but we're still learning about the public health effects of air pollution.
Children who are exposed to great amounts of air pollution could actually decrease their lung function as adults. Asthmatics, whether children or adults, can have asthma attacks because of the air pollution, which people may not realize, but asthma attacks can be deadly.
She was lethargic, shortness of breath, coughing type thing. I knew something was really wrong right away.
Shortness of breath and, wheezing, coughing, stuff like that.
I went to the emergency room and the doctor say, I have to give you the medication.
When air quality is poor, that can lead to increased risk of emergency room visits, asthma exacerbations, and hospitalizations.
What we are trying to do in this area is to decrease the number of emergency room visits and make a change point by point with families that are dealing with kids that have asthma. But it is a growing disease.
Air pollution also poses major problems for the Tampa Bay ecosystem. Seagrasses, the underwater vegetation that nurtures aquatic life, are vulnerable to excess nitrogen from air pollution.
Underwater seagrasses are very critical as habitat for fish and food for manatees and sea turtles that live in the bay, so it's a very critical habitat.
The nitrogen that's put into the air is biologically active, and when it transfers from the air, either through rainfall or through atmospheric turbulence to the water surface, it spawns algal growth.
Algae actually blocks light in the water, and the seagrasses retreated from their deeper edges because they just weren't getting enough light.
Tens of thousands of acres of seagrasses were lost from the bay, and it has taken decades of management to begin to increase seagrass coverage.
We're not back to our 1950s levels yet, but we're making good progress. We're making progress at about 200 acres per year right now.
Air pollution does have an effect on the health of the bay, and when you think about it, what goes up eventually will come down.
If you count the amount that comes in directly to the water surface and the amount that comes in as stormwater runoff, it can be more than 50% of our total nitrogen load comes from atmospheric deposition. We need to hold the line at the amount of nitrogen coming into the bay at what we are seeing now and have been seeing for about the last 10 years. With population increases in the bay watershed, it's going to be more difficult to do that.
Power plants in the Tampa Bay area rely heavily on fossil fuels, oil, gas, and coal. They produce nitrogen and sulfur oxides, sometimes called NOx and SOx.
Coal is more polluting in terms of nitrogen than oil, and natural gas is the least polluting with respect to nitrogen because those fuels have lesser and lesser amounts of nitrogen in the fuel.
Continuing our dependence on dirty fossil fuels like coal is certainly not the way to go. When you look at it in terms of air quality, when you look at it in terms of mercury pollution and mercury affecting our waters, this affects the fish that eventually make it to our dinner plate, And also when you look at the threat of global warming, coal is clearly a dirty relic of the past.
The Tampa Bay region is expected to grow by 2 million people by 2030 and double in population by the year 2050 to over 7 million. Aside from clean cars, this region will need what every other large metropolitan area in the United States has: mass transit.
It's impossible to keep building and building roads, and mass transit is the answer.
We need to put more of an investment in getting people moved around, not vehicles. That way we can grow as a community. It'll be a great economic boom for this area, and we'll breathe easier and make life a lot better in the Tampa Bay region.
There's a lot of things about clean air policy and clean energy policy. You can get pretty wonky. You can talk a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, a lot of, millions of barrels of oil and kilowatts. But I think what really comes down to it is that we want to protect the places that we love, and that we want to leave them hopefully better off than we found them for our future generations.